Alright everyone, so real quick before the episode starts, I wanted to let you all know that, yes, this is going to be an episode entirely devoted to one topic, which is the whole Channel Awesome scandal, as I'm calling it for the purposes of this episode. So I usually don't do episodes devoted to one topic, but as you all know, if I see something or hear about something or whatever it may be of something I think needs to be talked about, then by golly, I'm going to talk about it. But besides, I don't think you guys much mind what topics I talk about, so I don't think you all will really care. Number two, for those of you on YouTube, you all might notice some autofocusing, and that's because I was trying out my new lens, but I don't know how apparent it will be on YouTube. I didn't notice it while editing, but YouTube might be a bit different because of the compression that it automatically does on videos. So with that being said, let's get on with the episode. Alright everyone, welcome back to the Anything on I Think podcast, episode 39. And unlike last week's episode, this week's episode, I have a new lens, so therefore, I can actually film this time. Welcome back to my face. I also fixed up my boom arm, and all I really had to do was tighten some bolts. So now I can actually move my boom arm into easier position so that I can use it. Isn't that wonderful? Turn myself down there for a bit, just so it's not super loud. So yes. And if you notice the camera autofocusing, it's because I'm trying out my new said lens. And this is supposed to have a pretty decent focusing, especially autofocusing. And this lens is actually completely fucking silent, as in you cannot hear it focus. So I can use autofocus, and it won't be picked up on any of my microphones. But we'll see. We'll see how the autofocusing looks. If it's very distracting, I'll just turn it off. So for this week's episode, I wanted to start off with a bit of a serious one, and something that I'm a little bit late to, but it's been going on for a couple of weeks now, I think. And you all know how opinionated I am on this podcast. If I see someone, something, or a group of people doing something that either obviously is wrong or something that I think is wrong, I'm going to call them out on it. But you all know that I only call out people whom I think have legitimately done something wrong. So, in this case, I wanted to talk briefly about the whole Channel Awesome stuff, which Channel Awesome, you might know, that's where programs like Nostalgia Critic came from, because the guy who plays the Nostalgia Critic is the guy who founded Channel Awesome, whom is, of course, Doug Walker, aka the Nostalgia Critic, but real names aren't important. Okay, actually, real names are important in this sense, but you get what I mean. So I know some people haven't commented on this because they don't want to get involved and it doesn't involve them, and they don't want to start drama, which, of course, I respect. Of course, I respect that. That's entirely up to said people, persons, or other channels. They can choose whether or not to get involved or whether or not to speak on it. That's their whole choice. And I agree with the whole not starting drama thing, because then it just turns into random bullshit that you now have to deal with. But as you all know, in my case, I don't give a shit, because although I do not like to start drama with anyone, and I usually don't because I ignore it, which is the case in this case. If anyone from Channel Awesome, which I doubt because they ain't got time for little bastards like me, but if someone from there does happen to see this, say whatever you want. I'm going to ignore you, especially because of my particular opinions on this whole thing. If anyone does want to start drama with me, I'm going to ignore it because I don't have time for it. And I'm also 23 years old. As a 23-year-old, I don't have time for drama anymore. I didn't have time for it when I was 13, and I don't have time for it now that I'm 23. Nor do I much care about anything, so I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. Obviously. So, if you don't know the whole Channel Awesome stuff going on, I'll give a brief rundown. And don't worry, I'm actually having to time myself so I don't go too overboard and it doesn't take me super long to edit. So I can actually get this episode out on time because I'm filming it very late. So I want to get this out on time, so I'm actually timing myself to make sure I don't go overboard. But we'll see. So the whole Channel Awesome thing, Channel Awesome was founded in part by Doug Walker, who is known as the Nostalgia Critic. That is the character he plays. The Nostalgia Critic is basically a character, like anything on YouTube. And more specifically, there are other key people involved here. Most notably, the man who is the official CEO of pretty much the company that has Channel Awesome, which I'm guessing is Channel Awesome, I don't know. Mike McCod is how I'm going to assume it's pronounced. I'll put the name on the screen here and all of you can correct me. Anybody who knows how it's actually said can correct me. I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but whatever. So it basically more so revolves around him. So according to what the whole thing started with was a group of or several former employees of thatguywithglasses.com and the whatever parent company it is. I don't know how that works. A group of former employees came out with I believe it was a 70-something page, a document, where they describe all of these very, 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 shall we say, unprofessional-like incidents and conduct that the staff at thatguywithglasses.com and Channel Awesome have done. So it's basically what you would assume is basically your average scandal involving any kind of company. Pretty much any scandal involving any company is basically what this is. But it's what they describe that's very unsettling. So I'll do a very general description of what they describe in the document. So former employees describe Mike McCod in particular of some very horrible things. Most notably, misogyny, sexist, which may or may not, which depending on who you are you might consider the same thing, and a bunch of other things. But mostly sexism and misogyny. Because there are claims, according to the document, former employees claim, especially female former employees claim, that Mike McCod and the other higher ups would intentionally fire female employees, sexually harass female employees, try to coerce female employees into having sex with several of them, most notably Mike McCod, and a bunch of other things. And in particular, they describe one employee who says she was fired because she was 15 minutes late to a Skype call business thing. Can you really be late to a Skype call? Can a Skype call really be considered an actual fucking conference call or presentation or whatever? It's a Skype call. It's not like you're sitting there in person. God knows none of them would do that. That's too terrifying for them. Keep in mind, 15 minutes late. Or supposedly 15 minutes late, I should say. Because there is no evidence for anyone being late 15 minutes for a Skype call. And this is basically your thing where it's, who do you believe? This person or this person? I can't accurately move my hands because there's no space to move my hands. But you get what I mean. And I shall read off more of the specific things that in the document they claim have been done. So I have the actual document, the actual official document, open up on my phone here because the actual document is out there for all to see. So I'm going to go over some of the basic things. What they would do is they would make these films once every year. They would be like specials, but they would be 3 to 4 hours long. So they'd basically be films, especially on the final little special that they did, which was called To Boldly Flee, which sounds oddly familiar in title. But yes, so the final one was supposedly the worst because, according to the document here, Doug Walker specifically had to be told he had to give food and water to his actors, which kind of sounds like he was having to be told as if he was taking care of an animal, which is disturbing. So the man basically had to be told, oh, by the way, Doug, you have to give your actors something to eat and something to drink if you're going to be filming for this long, which you shouldn't have to tell somebody. If you're a filmmaker, you shouldn't have to be told you have to give your actors something to eat and something to drink, especially if you're going to be filming for what? I believe they said something like 8 hours a day, 18 hours a day, some crazy shit like that. Hollywood films don't shoot for 18 hours a day. I doubt. If you're going to be shooting for 8 to 18 hours a day, you have to give your actors something to eat and something to drink. They cannot go 18 hours with no food or water. That's not going to fucking happen. So there's that, which proves that nobody on that set, none of the actors nor the people involved, nobody at Channel Awesome actually knew how to do video production. This just proves none of them had no idea what the fuck they were doing because they didn't look it up, because they just wanted money. Because it's like I keep saying, they all saw how lucrative YouTube could be and how lucrative their website was getting when it got big, and then they started seeing nothing but dollar signs. Trust me. I think you'd all agree with me on that. But I'm going to move on to some of the much more disturbing accusations because I don't want this to take too terribly long. I want to skip down to what is perhaps the most serious allegation against them, and this involves specific people, which I'm going to go ahead and name because it's all out there on the internet anyway. You can literally find the names of these people if you Google search Channel Awesome whatever. Plus, if you go and read the actual document, you will find the names of many of the employees who put together the document, save for a few who wanted to remain anonymous. So you can find these people's names and or their screen names, as some of them went by, on the actual document. So I'm going to skip down, and this involves a woman by the name of Holly Brown. Brown claims they didn't listen to any of her ideas, despite the fact that she apparently was one of the only people who worked there that actually had a degree in any sort of media or video anything. But that's probably because she was a woman and they didn't want to take orders from a woman because they were fucking sexist as shit. According to the document, her problems really started when she, or one of the main people of Channel Awesome, Mike Ellis, who is also apparently very prolific in the company, but not as prolific as Mike McCod. Mike Ellis, Brown states that Mike Ellis, was upset with her because she wouldn't have a relationship with him. First of all, let me explain. Mike Ellis was married at the time, and for some reason he still wanted to have a relationship with another woman, which is quite literally cheating. So yeah, that sort of explains to you what kind of character Mike Ellis apparently had. And perhaps the worst single part of Molly Brown's story in this. So, supposedly, according to the document, Mike Ellis was fired partially after he and Mike McCord nearly got into a fist fight after a meeting. Don't ask me how that started. So they fired him, and according to the document, other employees at Channel Awesome were so concerned that Mike Ellis would come after Holly Brown, I'm assuming because he blamed her for getting him fired, that they actually had to put her in a safe house. As is similar when someone is being abused by a spouse. They basically had to protect her to the same level as someone being abused by a spouse. She even describes that she would be escorted to her own house by some of the other male employees with baseball bats and a sword, because apparently they were all that terrified of Mike Ellis. When you're so afraid of somebody, you have to be escorted to your own fucking house by people with baseball bats and swords. There's a problem. There's probably a reason to be that afraid of somebody. If you're that afraid of somebody, they're likely going to do something. They had some real reason to be afraid of the man. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone as far as they did. Which is just very sad. Apparently, from the way I'm reading it, Holly Brown specifically was specifically targeted. I'm assuming because she actually had more accreditation and experience than the rest of them. So perhaps that was the reason. Maybe it pissed them off that a woman managed to get higher accreditation and managed to be more successful than them, I guess. I'm not really sure. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't explain where sexism and misogyny come from. And perhaps the saddest part, she was actually fired, I believe, a day or two after she had just undergone surgery. She doesn't explain what the surgery was. So they basically fired one of their medically disabled employees, knowing she had had surgery, knowing she was incapacitated, and they didn't tell her why they let her go. What's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard of? Apparently, after they fired her, for no reason, after she had surgery, they told Brown that she couldn't apply for another job for 3 years. Which I don't exactly know if that's legal to do. I don't know if you can legally do that. I'm not sure. That doesn't sound very legal to me, but I wouldn't know. What it sounds like is that they intentionally did all of this because they knew she had just had surgery and they knew she was ill and wouldn't have been able to do anything. So they took advantage of that because they were just that hell-bent on getting rid of her. Probably because I guess they just couldn't stand the fact that Holly Brown had accreditation and higher prospects than them, I guess. Basically, I'm saying because she was educated and actually had a degree, they went after her. That's what it sounds like to me. So I'm kind of thinking that this is actually all true, considering how professional the document looks, how legit the document looks. Otherwise, why would all these ex-employees go to the lengths to write them all down in a 75-page document? All right, everyone, so apologies there. My camera's battery died on me, so I had to recharge it. But we're back. So, from what I can tell by going to Channel Awesome's YouTube channel and all of that, as far as I know, I have not seen Doug Walker comment on any of this. As a matter of fact, it seems like he's just ignoring it because he's been posting Nostalgia Critic episodes. If he really is innocent and he really didn't know for some strange reason about what his own employees were doing, then he needs to come out and honestly say that. He needs to honestly address this if he actually gives a shit about his employees. And if it comes out that any of this was true, that any of them actually did this, I'm going to be honest, I think the Channel Awesome YouTube channel should be taken down. The whole thing should be taken down. Or handed over to somebody who knows what the fuck to do. Because apparently, nobody else who runs this website, the YouTube channel, or anything, apparently none of them know how to properly do videography, film production, or anything of the sort. They don't know what they're doing. So they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to properly run a business because they didn't go to school for it. And they have no business training. It might as well be as if it's a bunch of teenage dudes trying to run a business. That's literally what it sounds like from reading as much of the document as I have. And I think that's the problem with YouTube in general. Of course, not everyone on YouTube, but a good portion, including myself, they have no fucking clue on earth as to what they're actually doing. They have no clue how to do what they actually do because of the large influx of all these Viners and whatever it may be. I think that has made it worse. Because these people from Vine, I'm going to assume, have never had any kind of experience with anything other than Vine. So they don't know what they're doing. They're not used to having to talk to a camera directly for more than 6 seconds. So I think the pressure of having to make actual length videos, having to come up with their own ideas, has been too stressful for them. And they don't know what they're doing because they don't learn and research how to do what they want to do, which is why I thoroughly research how to do video editing so I can effectively do it. Because prior, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. But that's why I watch tutorials, read up on actual film production terms, read very detailed articles about film production, and anything like that, so I can effectively do it. It's simple. And I think that's the main problem. One, they don't know most of these YouTubers don't know what they're doing. I think they go in it I think a lot of them go in there with the wrong frame of mind. Like Channel Awesome. I think with Channel Awesome, they thought it was going to be this Smosh level of success. But if you go onto their YouTube channel, even though it's still pretty good size, they only have 1 million subscribers, which is nowhere near to what Smosh has cumulatively. And I don't mean to use comparison between YouTube channels in order to get my point across, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, channels like Smosh, Shane Dawson, PewDiePie are doing anything better or different than Channel Awesome. I'm using channels like Smosh and such as examples because that's what I feel like all of these new YouTubers, like the Viners and such, I think that's what they mistakenly come onto YouTube trying to emulate. They're trying to get their channels either just as big or larger than original channels like Shane Dawson, Smosh, and PewDiePie. And if you look at Channel Awesome, and even the Paul brothers, you'll see that statistically, their stats are nowhere near Shane Dawson, Smosh, PewDiePie especially, which is why I think it's a bad frame of mind to go into with. So perhaps that makes sense. Perhaps that makes sense. Perhaps you understand what I'm trying to say here and understand why I think it's happening the way it is. They either go in there with the wrong frame of mind that they're going to be massively successful and then they're not, and then they just apparently fucking lose it, or they are successful and they still can't handle it because no one's effectively told them how to effectively handle it. And voila, you have people like the Paul brothers, Channel Awesome, fucking, who was that dude? Who was the dude who didn't get any jail time, despite the fact that he was more or less sexually abusing minors. Austin something, was that his name? Daddy 05. And I think that his problem is they just wanted to be famous. And it didn't work exactly the way they thought. So they started taking it out on their children because their lives weren't going the way they wanted to. So they took it out on their children. And it backfired royally. All of those people went in with the wrong mindset. They went in doing YouTube and internet anything, thinking it would be quick, easy money. And there is not a single goddamn job you can do that's going to be easy money. There is no job on earth that is easy money. Trust me, you ain't going to find it. And if you do try to find something like that, the chances are it won't be very much money. Nor will you probably get it anyway. So yeah, I realize this was a very serious episode, and hopefully it didn't bring down your spirits too much. But don't worry. Next week's episode will be a much more lighthearted episode. I'll make sure of it. But, I like to mix them up. I like to have a serious episode and then a negative topic the other, or mix and match them. So regardless, if you guys like this episode, you guys on SoundCloud can like the track, favorite the track, which I think are the two same things, but whatever. Did I already say comment on the track, because you guys can do that too, but whatever. And you guys on YouTube can thumbs up the video, thumbs down the video, also comment on the video, whatever you want to do. And I'll see you guys in next week's episode.